Sometimes colleges invite me to give their students lectures on writing, or horror, or whatever else it is I pretend to be an expert on. They're fun gigs. I fly out, stay in a hotel on their dime, and inspire the next generation of creatives. It's good for the soul, usually. But last March, a trip to the University of Kansas left my soul feeling deeply troubled. It was late when I landed, and a sophomore who worked at the student union gave me a ride from the airport. Christine was quiet, and she didn't seem to be a horror fan. Just a young woman doing her job. At least I thought so. Until she took a detour and pulled over by a cemetery. It was lit by moonlight and surrounded by a barbed wire fence to keep people out. Or maybe to keep something terrible in. Yeah, my horror brain was kicking into gear. I asked why we'd stopped. Christine told me this was Stull Cemetery, the most haunted place in all of Kansas. She wanted me to check it out. I told her, kindly, that I'd rather not go ghost hunting. I was tired. And in my line of work, if you've seen one haunted cemetery, you've kind of seen them all. I thought she'd laugh, but Christine told me this one was different. Then she gripped the wheel and asked if I was religious. Something was off about this girl. She wasn't dangerous, exactly, but there was a pathetic need radiating off of her. So I said sure, I was a believer. I believed in a higher power, in right and wrong, but I wasn't a scripture fanatic. Maybe that's why in my wilder years, a few of my execs had said I was going to hell. Now Christine laughed, bitterly. She told me I didn't want to go there. She knew for a fact it was worse than I could ever imagine. My eyes went wide as Christine told me. That's why she'd brought me here. Because deep within this cemetery, in the ruins of a chapel, there was a stairway to hell. You're listening to Run, Fool. I'm Rodney Barnes, and this is episode 56, Stairway to Hell. A year ago, Christine sat on her dorm room couch at the University of Kansas. It was late on a Sunday, and the freshman was reading her Kindle, or trying to. She wished she had her noise-canceling headphones, because her roommate Audrey was making one hell of a ruckus in the bedroom. After the grunts and giggles ended, the bedroom door opened. Audrey and her sort-of boyfriend Trey came out to make themselves a snack and share a weed vape. Trey was a junior, a slacker, a magic mushroom dealer who never went to class. Despite all that, Christine didn't really mind him hanging around. He had a boy's charm, and he always said hi when he saw her on campus. Unlike Audrey, who ignored her. She had this jaded big city snobby energy that was so intimidating. Trey and Audrey started yapping over vape hits. Christine usually tuned out Audrey's stone pseudo-intellectual rants. But tonight, her ears perked up when she heard her roomie say, "Religious people are just stupid. Plain and simple. The world would be a better place if those nutjobs crucified themselves." Christine felt a pang of indignation. She looked down at the book she was reading, which, as it happens, was the Bible. See, Christine was a believer. It wasn't a fact she advertised because she was still figuring her college self out. She'd relaxed a lot since her evangelical childhood and gotten more progressive, too. She dressed modestly, but not conservatively. She took communion at church, but still had beer at parties. And if a cute boy wanted to flirt with her, she'd flirt back. But Audrey's words triggered an old voice in her head, her faith, telling her, fight back. Christine piped up. She told Audrey she shouldn't generalize. There were good and bad Christians, just like there were good and bad atheists. If she ever wanted an honest dialogue about faith, she'd be happy to have one. Audrey looked up, like a viper eyeing its prey, intrigued by Christine for the first time. Then she smirked and unleashed a barrage of snotty questions. What did good and bad mean anyway? Did she deny science or evolution? Did Christine really believe in God? Was God a man? Oh, and was she actually afraid of the devil? Christine felt small, threatened, like a rube. She felt that whisper in her ear again. Fight back. So she blurted, yeah, she was afraid of the devil. He was clearly working his evil through Audrey right now. Audrey's jaw dropped, like someone had slapped her. For a non-believer, she seemed so wounded. And Christine wasn't sure she was sorry for wounding her. Trey stepped between them like a referee. He said, first of all, Audrey was a steamroller and Christine was a doormat, so this wasn't a fair fight. Also, religion was the most cliché freshman late-night debate, the kind you have your first week that bonds you. If it had taken them a year to get to this topic, then they were both crappy roommates. The girls looked at Trey, annoyed. He told them not to worry. He had a solution. He took a drag of his vape. Smoke wafted around him in eerie tendrils as he asked, had they heard of Stull Cemetery? It was 10 miles outside of town. There were tons of scary stories about it, some dating back to the ancient 1970s. Others were more modern. Like in 2013 when Ariana Grande said she visited Stull and sensed a demonic presence. Yep, Google it. Trey took another puff and circled them. The scariest part was the chapel. It was half collapsed, off limits. But if you dared to trespass into it on the right night, a stairwell would appear, one that led deep into the earth, straight down into hell, where the devil would greet you. It happened twice a year, on Halloween night and on the spring equinox. Trey grinned and said the equinox was a few days away. So, the answer was clear. Audrey and Christine stared at him, not getting it. Trey rolled his eyes. Duh. The girls should camp out in the chapel. If spooky stuff happened and the stairwell appeared, Audrey would have to admit that logic didn't explain everything. And if nothing happened, then Christine could chill out with the devil stuff. Either way, they'd actually hang out, build bridges, connect as humans. Trey nodded like a stone sage. Then he burst into a hacking cough, and the girls looked away. Look, it's embarrassing when a wasted party boy with a 2.2 GPA clocks your petty drama with razor-sharp precision. So Audrey thought, damn it, and Christine thought, darn it. They turned to each other and shrugged. What the hell, right? On the day of the equinox, Christine stalked through Stull Cemetery. She wasn't with Audrey. She'd come early, lugging a duffel bag. She jumped when she saw a grave that said Witch, before she realized it really said Wittich, an odd family name. Otherwise, the cemetery was full of grassy hills, and the trees bloomed with flowers. On this spring day, it was hardly scary, until Christine saw the chapel. An icy breeze kicked up, coming from the building, whistling through the half-destroyed roof. As she walked closer, she saw that the grass around it was brown, like it had died long ago and was too scared to grow back. Christine started to have second thoughts, but then she heard that inner voice, the one she'd come to know as her faith. It said, "Bring glory to me," and it made her feel brave. She reached out to touch the cross necklace she'd worn around her neck. Then she pushed open the chapel door and walked in. Christine set her bag down on a rotting pew. She took a few halting steps in to scan the room. There were no stairways anywhere, especially none that led to hell. The only scary thing was the big cross at the front of the chapel. The termite-ridden floor had buckled in, and the cross hung on a diagonal, a little askew, just like her own faith. Christine went to her bag and unzipped it. She brought a few supplies that might come in handy. She wasn't sure if she could only rely on the stories about the chapel. She wasn't even sure she wanted proof that the devil existed. But no matter what happened, Christine vowed to scare Audrey into being a believer. Around 11 p.m., Christine and Audrey walked into the chapel. When their flashlights sliced through the darkness, rats and bats skittered away. Christine shrieked. Audrey just said, "Nice." They went to the pews and got out their sleeping bags. When Christine unrolled hers, she shrieked again. She called Audrey over to see the marks on her pew. They came together in a shape that looked like a crude pentagram, drawn in blood. Fresh blood. Audrey shrugged. So what? A bat probably killed the bat and that was just blood spatter. Christine should find a clean pew. Oh, and get a rabies shot tomorrow. She smirked. That is, if Christine believed in science. A few minutes later, the girls lay on their pews, waiting for something scary to happen, which it didn't. So to fill up the time, they started to talk. Really talk, for the first time. Christine found out that Audrey wasn't from a big city. She pretended to be because the backwoods Arkansas town she grew up in was a place she wanted to forget. She didn't elaborate, but she said it was so bad she'd basically run away. Now she wanted to be a child psychologist to stop parents from screwing up kids the way her parents had. Christine said she'd have to work on her bedside manner. Audrey snorted. A bit later, Christine heard a rustling and shot up. Her heart raced until she saw that it was Audrey, unwrapping a chocolate bar and noisily chewing chunks. Audrey offered up a piece, and Christine took it gladly. She hadn't had dinner. She was starting to enjoy the odd taste. Maybe it was fruit-infused? When Audrey said, "By the way, that's mushroom chocolate." Christine spat it out, feeling betrayed. Audrey shrugged. Trey had sold it to her, and she wanted to liven up her Stull experience. If no real demons were there, at least she'd have a freaky time anyway. Christine gritted her teeth. Audrey thought this was a big joke. She pulled out her phone with a sour expression and saw. It was midnight. It was already quiet in the chapel, yet somehow it got quieter, like someone had dragged a weighted blanket over the room. Christine could hear every creak, every rustle, every termite eating away at the rotting wood. Then a whisper echoed through the chapel. Audrey. The girls gasped. Christine asked, "Did Audrey hear that?" Audrey looked like she was going to say no when the whisperer said her name again. Christine said maybe they should leave. It didn't sound human. Audrey raised an eyebrow. No, wait, it did sound familiar. In fact, it sounded like Christine. The same frantic whisper she used whenever Audrey accidentally passed out and locked Christine out of their dorm. Christine stammered while Audrey just pulled out her phone and tapped it. Suddenly, a ping ran out across the chapel, and the whispers were replaced with a song from her Spotify playlist, an Ariana Grande banger, God is a Woman. Audrey laughed and ran to the back of the room. She pushed aside an oddly thick pile of cobwebs to find the Bluetooth speaker that Christine had hidden. Audrey turned off the speaker. She said, "Nice trick," but Christine was sloppy. The bloody mark she'd shown her earlier looked too red, like stage blood. Oh, and the cobwebs were too clean, and they still smelled like that plastic packaging. Christine looked down at her feet, speechless, burning with shame, disgusted with herself, and weak in the face of Audrey's entirely justified skepticism. Audrey wandered past the crooked cross to the apse at the front of the chapel. She stopped laughing and let out a low whistle. She called out, "Nice job with the trap door, though. At least this looked realistic." Christine whipped around, alarmed. She had no idea what she meant. She rushed to Audrey, who was looking at a pair of wooden doors set in the wall, like the entrance to a storm cellar. There were carvings in the doors, runes maybe, or the etchings of a madman. Christine felt wrongness pulsing off it and told Audrey to stay back. This door was not here earlier. Audrey laughed. Yeah, right. She banged on it with her foot and cooed, "Satan, honey, I'm home." There was a clang. Then, the doors blew open. I have to tell you about this game-changing product I use before a night out with drinks. It's called pre-alcohol. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by a PhD scientist to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. I remember a night, this was after my divorce. I went out and I said, you know what, I'm going to feel better. And I did it 2 nights in a row. It was actually a whole weekend because you don't just get over that thing quickly. So the first night I went out without pre-alcohol. And man, the next morning I felt like I was going through a divorce within my body. The second night, I tried a little pre-alcohol. And you know what? Things weren't so bad. So if you're going through divorce or even getting married and you're on the fence, try pre-alcohol and you'll make a great decision and feel good while you're doing it. Go to zbiotics.com/run to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use RUN at checkout. ZBiotics is back with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/run and use the code RUN at checkout for 15% off.
Transat presents a couple trying to beat the winter blues.
We could try hot yoga.
Too sweaty. We could go skating.
Too icy.
We could book a vacation.
Like somewhere hot.
Yeah, with pools.
And a spa.
And endless snacks. Yes! Yes! Yes!
With savings of up to 40% on Transat South packages, it's easy to say, so long to winter. Visit transat.com or contact your Marlin travel professional for details. Conditions apply. Air Transat. Travel moves us.
The girl saw a stone stairwell. It looked old, not colonial, biblical, and it led down into total darkness. Christine grabbed Audrey and told her they had to get out. Audrey rolled her eyes. It was probably just a basement. Besides, her shrooms were hitting. It was the perfect time for a good scare. Way better than the one Christine tried to give her. Audrey wriggled out of Christine's grip. She raised her phone flashlight, then went down the stairs. She just started to say that it smelled weird when the doors slammed shut behind her. Audrey let out a muffled scream, and Christine dropped to the ground. She pushed and pulled at the doors, but they wouldn't budge. She'd gotten her roommate trapped on the stairway to hell. Christine banged the doors and yelled Audrey's name. After too long, she heard Audrey respond. She sounded like she'd gone down 20 steps at least. Christine told her to come back. If they both tried to work the door, they'd get it to budge. In a strange voice, Audrey said she couldn't. The stairs don't go up, only down. Christine scoffed. Maybe those mushrooms were making Audrey believe in nonsense, but all she had to do was turn around and go up. Audrey let out a panicked giggle. There weren't stairs behind her anymore, just in front of her. She said she saw a warm orange light deep at the bottom, and a smell like sulfur. A chill went down Christine's back. It sounded a hell of a lot like fire and brimstone. Audrey whispered, "I have to go. Someone's calling my name." Then there was silence. Christine's heart began to pound. She scrambled up to grab the Bluetooth speaker. It was decently heavy, so she threw it at the doors. It bounced back, like the doors were made of rubber, and hit her in the head. Christine felt blood trickle into her eyes. She thought about calling Trey or the cops, but she wasn't sure they'd believe her. No, there was only one person she could turn to. So Christine fell to her knees and prayed. She begged God for forgiveness, for the strength to rescue Audrey. Christine heard the inner voice again, only this time it sounded nasty and amused. "Why ask God when you're knocking at my door?" Christine realized the voice that had been guiding her wasn't faith. It wasn't God. or a guardian angel. It was the devil. She'd played right into his hands. But she had a frenemy to rescue, so she pleaded with Satan to enter his domain. The whisper asked, "What will you give me?" Christine spoke aloud. "A fair fight." A rumble filled the chapel. The big wooden cross fell off his stand to hang upside down. The cellar doors burst open, and the voice said, "Come on down." Christine made the sign of the cross and stepped into the stairwell. As the door slammed shut behind her, she descended into hell. The start of a new year is the perfect time to get organized, set goals, and prioritize what matters most. For me, a top priority is my financial wellness, which feels more important than ever. Thanks to Rocket Money, my goals feel achievable. They show me all of my subscriptions right in one place and help me easily cancel ones that I forgot I've been paying for. Rocket Money also pulls together all of my spending across all of my different accounts, so I can clearly track my spending habits and see where I can cut back. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. See all of your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money is going. For ones you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/run today. That's rocketmoney.com/run. Christine went down about 10 steps. Then she made the mistake of looking back. It was just like Audrey said. There were no stairs behind her anymore. The exit to the chapel seemed to recede, like it was mocking her. Christine told herself she'd been preparing for this her whole life. Believers talked a big game about fighting off the devil. She was going to do it for real. So she kept going down, even if she couldn't see in the dark. She recited the Lord's Prayer for comfort, but the stairs didn't like that. They quivered under her feet, threatening to turn into quicksand, and Christine decided to pray silently. After minutes, or maybe hours, the air grew acrid with brimstone. Christine saw the bottom of the stairs, a red-orange glow she was drawn to like a moth to a flame. She hurried down, going way too fast. She tripped and tried to steady herself, but when Christine grabbed at the walls, her flesh sizzled. She screamed and went tumbling. She landed in a stone hallway, one so full of smoke that she couldn't see the end of it. As she pulled herself up, she saw that the walls were made of bones. Through the cracks, Christine saw fire and lava, pulsing. Sweat poured down her brow, and she felt like she was in an oven. There were etchings on the bones in all the holy languages, Arabic and Sanskrit, Aramaic and Hebrew, a phrase repeated over and over. She didn't know what it meant until she saw it written in English. "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." She heard a whimper and squinted. There was a lump on the ground, 100 feet away, one that was moving. Christine gathered her strength. She staggered down the corridor, picking up speed. Bursts of sulfurous vapor shot from the walls, like they were trying to stop her, which they were. She held her breath and rushed through the vapor to find a bruised, bleeding Audrey. Christine knelt by her, and Audrey looked up. Her mad eyes darted around, and she babbled to herself. When Christine asked if she was okay, Audrey laughed hysterically. Then she went deathly quiet and whispered, "I saw the devil." Christine asked, "Where?" Audrey pointed right at her. "It's you. You're the devil." Christine felt a horrific pang of guilt. Of course Audrey thought that. She was the one who'd led her here. Audrey burst into tears and clawed at Christine's shirt. She told her she was sorry. She shouldn't have made fun. She was wrong, and she learned her lesson. Now she just wanted to go home, to be safe with her mom and dad. Despite the heat, Christine shivered. She didn't know much about Audrey, but in their brief moment of bonding, before everything went wrong, Audrey had said that she never wanted to go home, never wanted to see her parents. Now Christine knew this wasn't Audrey. This was the devil. The so-called Audrey started laughing. Her giggles echoed and warped, deepening into a demonic cackle. Christine was terrified, but she couldn't back down. So she reached out, slammed her hand over the creature's mouth, and told the devil to shut the hell up. Where was Audrey? The devil looked at Christine, intrigued. Then he said, Audrey was in hell. Her version of hell. Just like Christine was in her own hell right now. That's what hell was, facing your demons, forever, alone. Christine went quiet, then she looked Satan in the eyes and said she didn't believe in him. She didn't believe in him either. If it meant saving Audrey, then she'd give up her faith, the good and the bad parts. Christine ripped off her cross necklace and told him, he had no power over her now. The devil shrieked while she stood up and screamed Audrey's name. She heard stones grinding, bones shifting. Then a wall rose up, making the endless hallway not so endless anymore. There was a wooden door at the center of it. From within, Audrey cried out. Christine stood up and ran to the door. The handle seared her skin, but she paid it no mind. She swung it open and went into Audrey's version of hell. First there was a bright light, then it faded, and Christine found herself in an empty church. It was small, old, and smelled like it was rotting. Outside, the summer sun scorched an ugly backwoods forest. She heard someone weeping from a half-open door behind the apse. She crept toward it and peered inside. Christine saw a younger Audrey, maybe 13 or 14 years old. She sat in a chair while an old preacher, sallow-skinned and vicious, held a metal cross to her forehead and berated her. He screamed, but no sound came out of his mouth. Christine could barely hear him. It was muffled, like a dream or a memory. The preacher pointed at Audrey, and Christine realized Audrey was pregnant. There was another flash of light. Christine was in the same room, but now it was snowing outside. Audrey held an infant in her arms. The priest reached over, ripped it away, and handed it to a severe-looking woman. She walked out, and Audrey wailed. The priest stood over her with the cross again and spoke, but his words did not seem kind. Audrey looked to the back of the room, desperate. A man and a woman, her parents, stared back, stern and uncaring. Christine wasn't too sure what happened, but she got the idea. Audrey had an accident. She went to her parents and her preacher for help, and they punished her. Of course Audrey ran away. Of course she hated religion now. It had never shown her any love. Fury bubbled up within Christine, and she shouted Audrey's name. It cut through the muffled sound. The preacher went quiet, staring at Christine with menace in his eyes. Audrey turned back, stunned to see her. Christine told her this was just a lie, a trick. She had to fight her way out. Audrey shook her head. She was too weak. No matter where she went, she'd always be trapped here. Maybe she deserved to be. The preacher started laughing, and the sound drove Christine insane. She couldn't stop herself. She ran up, grabbed the metal cross from his hand, and stabbed it into the preacher's throat. He screamed. It sounded like 1,000 demons dying. Christine ran over and pulled Audrey up from her chair. She told her it was going to be okay. She'd killed the devil for her. A final flash of light lit up the room. And Christine and Audrey found themselves back in the Hall of Bones. All that was left of Audrey's hell was the bloody cross in Christine's hand. Audrey clutched at Christine and thanked her, with a glint of mania in her eyes. She believed now. Christine wasn't so sure that was a good thing. The hall started to quake. Bones clattered down, and lava seeped through the cracks. This place was going to blow soon. And Christine had no idea how to get them out. Audrey took the cross from her. She cried out for God's mercy, with more passion than Christine had ever seen from anyone at church. And suddenly, the stairwell appeared. Audrey grabbed Christine's arm and bolted. The girls ran, faster and faster as the stairs collapsed behind them. Soon they saw the doors to the chapel and Stull cemetery. Audrey burst into a delirious laugh. So did Christine. They were going to make it out, but just as they reached the doors, someone pulled them open, and a shadowy figure reared up inside the chapel to bar them from coming out. A horned figure. Christine stopped in her tracks, but Audrey kept going. With a frenzied cry, she launched herself out of the stairwell and onto the horned figure. They both toppled to the ground. She raised the cross and drove it into his chest, over and over. Christine scrambled out of the stairwell and screamed. Audrey wasn't stabbing a demon. She was stabbing her boyfriend, Trey, who was just wearing a cheap devil costume. Trey looked up at Christine. He reached out a pleading hand and gurgled, "I just wanted to scare you both." Then he went quiet. Christine sank to the ground. She barely jumped when the cellar door slammed shut and vanished. She couldn't take her eyes off Audrey. Her roommate sat on top of Trey's bloody corpse, smiling and whispering at Christine, "I killed the devil just like you. I killed the devil just like you." Christine finished her story and broke down in sobs. See, when the police arrived, they arrested Audrey. They couldn't find any evidence linking Christine to Trey's murder, so they cleared her. They certainly wouldn't believe her frantic pleas to check the chapel for a cellar door that never existed. The fact that Audrey had mushrooms in her system made it easy for them to believe she just had a psychotic break. Christine went to a priest hoping for a sympathetic ear, but he told her she was unwell, and if this was her version of faith, maybe she should stay away from the church. Nobody believed Christine. Now, a year later, it was the spring equinox again, and Christine wanted my help. She wanted to see if the doors would appear. She wanted me to see her go inside too, so someone would finally believe in her. I shook my head. If any of this was true, why would she want to go back to hell? Christine said I didn't get it. She wanted to use the doors to leave, because now she was certain she was still in hell. She'd never left. I wasn't sure what to say. Either this girl was nuts, or I was a figment in her own personal hell, which was too scary to consider. Still, she looked so sad, so lost. Figment or not, I couldn't just say no outright. So I told Christine she could go into the chapel, do what she needed to do, wait for a door to appear or escape, or just grieve for two almost friends who'd met a tragic ending. I'd wait in the car as long as she needed me to. Christine thanked me, then ran off into the Stull cemetery. We all go through our own versions of hell, the demons and memories and regrets that haunt us when nobody's around. I wasn't sure if Christine would come back, but I figure I owed it to her to stick around, at least for a bit. Sometimes, the thing that pulls you out of hell is knowing you're not alone. Run Fool is a production of Ballin Studios, Campside Media, and At Will Media. It is hosted and executive produced by me, Rodney Barnes. This episode was written by Amin Osman and produced by Abakar Adan. Editing by Abakar Adan. Sound director, designer, and mixer is Kevin Seaman. Coordinating producer is Avery Siegel. And artwork by Jessica Clarkston-Kiner. Production support by Jeremy Bone and Cole Lacasio. Special thanks to our operations team, Doug Slaywin, Ashley Warren, Sabina Mara, and Destiny Dingle. Executive producers at Ballin Studios are MrBallen, Nick Witters, and Zach Levin. Executive producer at Will Media is Will Malnati. Executive producers at Campside Media are Matt Scher, Josh Dean, Vanessa Gregoriadis, and Adam Hoff. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.